class. We are talking about chapter 9, and this chapter 2 is about restrictions. In this first video, we'll explain the restrictions that various kinds of C, T, and D nodes impose on their complements. Let's see. The first thing we'll talk about are complementizers and then determiners, and then we'll talk about tense, aspect, voice, and mood. So we know that since X-bar theory can overgenerate, and since some semantic content of verbs demands either more or fewer arguments, Carnie has come up with new features to express that phenomena. So the first we're going to take a look at different types of complementizers. So that complementizer, Christy hopes that Mike wins. If Jesse wondered if Barry left. Whether Nigel thought whether to leave. And we have to pay attention to the CPs being either finite or non-finite. We also have to pay attention to certain verbs and how certain verbs require that the clause that functions as their complement has particular properties. So in this case, Christy hopes that Mike wins. Jesse wondered if Barry left. Nigel thought whether to leave. Some verbs require that the clause that follows it be finite. As an example, Tony loves or Tony put the ball doesn't, even though X-bar generates that kind of sentence, the verbs demand something different. So for example, a verb like inquire can only take an interrogative complement clause. I ordered that Mike drink his beer is perfectly fine, but I inquired that Mike drink his beer demands something a little bit different. Let's take a look at I inquired if Mike drank his beer. Oh, that seems to work. And the differences in the verbs are grammatical differences, and they're expressed through functional components like complementizers. Therefore, Carnie's way of capturing these differences or subcategories, as he calls them, is through adding features. This is for the purpose of expressing the differences and the impositions they bring on the other words in the phrase or the sentence, right? So the verb demands something of the complement of the rest of the words in the phrase. So the feature plus minus Q corresponds to whether or not the complementizer introduces an embedded question. Minus Q replaces the proposition theta rule that we've used in the last chapter. And then the feature plus minus finite refers to whether or not the embedded clause is finite or non-finite. There it is, plus or minus finite. So if we include null, here is how to signify those features. As you can see, we have the null and then the minus Q plus finite. The for complementizer minus Q minus finite, and so on. Now we can create theta grids for them. So let's use the verb think. In this kind of sentence, I think that he wants more juice. The grid requires that the argument of think is marked as a DP, right? And it bears the theta role agent. It's the subject, I. And that the complement be a CP. And in this case, it's not an interrogative. It is a finite clause. So he wants more juice is finite. And then we're going to index them. So there's the agent. And there's the CP, that he wants more juice. Notice how the verb order demands different features. So I ordered that Mike drink his beer. So in this case, again, I is the agent, DP, we index it with the I, and that Mike drink his beer is a CP. It's a minus Q. It's not interrogative. And there it's indexed with J. And that's it. Stay tuned for determiners, and then tense, mood, and aspect, voice coming up. Okay, thank you.